Hello. Here we have people I know. Good to see everybody. And how are you?
Good. Enjoying retirement.
I was gonna say, how is retirement treating you?
Pretty sweet, thanks.
It's so
No regrets. All good.
That's important. It's important. Oh my God, I just saw an article talking about telling people retire early. Like, go ahead, take your retirement physically, you want to do that, and then something about the onset of cancer um, being closer to the 66 year, whatever. So I didn't read all of it yet, but it was very interesting.
So I've come up with two Bibles that I recommend to everyone about retirement. One of them is called Die with Zero, and it's that kind of thing that you know, get on with it, spend your money while you can, that kind of thing. And the other is From Strength to Strength. Have you read that one?
I
By a,
don't know that one. That's a
by
new
a
one for me.
sociologist, Albert, I'll think of it, From Strength to Strength. And it's a really good perspective about how to prepare for the later stage in life, um, and finding purpose and all of that. So those have been my guiding books.
I love it. I love it. I do know Die with Zero. So that's
Good one. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And then the other one that people had out recommended before to me is Outlive.
Oh, I don't know that one. Have you read it? Did you?
I have.
Okay.
It's thick. It's more health things to kind of be aware of and, a similar, but just yeah. So Outlive. Now we have Strength to Strength and Die with Zero.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Love it.
Good to see you.
Always collecting books.
Yes. And reading if possible. Yeah.
Yes, that too. That too. That too. Well, welcome everyone. Hi, Beverly. Hi, Jamie. Um, we have a short hour, so this is an opportunity for us to answer questions, have some dialogue today. I welcome you to add a question in chat or raise your hand and just ask it out loud. One of the things we wanted to say is that although we're recording, we will not be sharing like the full recording with any of your, like with you necessarily, but more like things that maybe I'm saying, just in terms of some clips. And very excited that you have joined us today. Um, One of the things that's happened a couple times is there's often a space in which people just want to ask questions, just have their questions they want to ask. We're still letting people in. So welcome. Some of the things I've been thinking about, though, just as a little prelude, have been the importance of leadership, the importance of self-care, right? Especially in these times right now, and the importance of staying connected, like really intentionally getting local, staying connected, connected in ways that maybe we've overlooked sometimes, like just talking to people in the grocery store, right? Things like that. So I wanted to put those couple like frames out there, but if anyone wants to get us started, has a question for our Ask Dr. Dietra hour, happy to hear the first question. Could say, like, did everybody just come to hear other people's questions?
Hey, Dr. Dietra. I think I partially did, but I'll just say I'm a chaplain student at the VA in San Antonio, Texas. Um, DEI is being struck from federal workplaces and from my training program. And I know there's lots of people that are in a very uncertain space right now, and it's not being talked about in my workplace. And so I guess
Ah,
my biggest question is just how to, besides just talking to people in the grocery store, besides just talking to people in the hallway, smiling, trying to be a welcoming, safe presence. I'm not in a position of leadership. How do I mean, with my preceptor, with the people in my chaplain training group, we've talked about it, tried to provide space for conversation. Um, I guess I'm just wondering, in the environment that we find ourselves in now, how to do more than just try to smile at people and show that we're a safe place. Like,
mm,
how do we open up space, if space is even wanted, when this is it's not even safe to speak. So I don't know if you've got any words around that, but that's the space I find myself in right now.
mm. Well, I am so grateful, one, that you came here and have shared that with us, with this group. I think you're not alone. And I think one of our first things with all of this is to recognize that we're actually not alone. Um, and I also, I have a lot of different thoughts. So I want to try to put a couple things in, but if it's okay, I'd also like to ask a question a little bit. So, um, when you say that you have talked with people, like some of the precepts, what, how has that happened? Um, are you having like dialogues with your supervisors or anyone, or is it more like you're looking for direction? When people are talking about it, what are they saying?
I mean, for me specifically, my preceptor, my direct supervisor, the person who's teaching me mental health chaplaincy, is African American. We have never had a conversation about our political affiliations or anything like that in our space. That's just not something that people go into, because we're supposed to be neutral. We're not
Mm,
supposed to broach that. So
mm-hmm,
um, just us talking about the craziness that is happening. um, I I guess my desire in that is for maybe for him to know that um, I come from the same place that he's coming from, and that I care about his experience.
mm-hmm,
Um, in my in my chaplain circle, there's a couple of Latina students. They're not originally from this area. I don't know how the things on the border are affecting them right now, or whether they feel personally affected by this. But just
mm-hmm,
trying to create space so that people know that a conversation about how they're feeling and how they're experiencing this is welcome,
mm-hmm,
if
mm-hmm,
if they want to go there.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
that's what I'm doing
yeah.
in my personal circles. But in a larger way, in the hospital, like, how is there? I'm just feeling the I'm just feeling the situation and the unsafety that is implicit in it, and just wondering how there's so many of us that are being affected in different ways. The DEI part is not a way that it's affecting me personally,
Mm-hmm,
but I just care about it. And so I'm wondering, like, how to hold that in the
Mhm,
middle of this place that's become very unsupportive.
mhm. So thank you for going a little bit deeper with me, and I hope for other people this will also be helpful. Um, I often, if any of you have been in trainings with me, we often talk about dialogue versus debate, right? Like the role what this is back and forth. So I think that part of what we're trying to do is recognize the dialogue skills versus the debate skills, and a lot of what the fear that people are experiencing is that they're being debated and shouted down, and like it's not a conversation, it's not a dialogue. So one is to introduce this is to always use that you are looking to have a dialogue around something. So that's one thing I just want to highlight that we still need to be aware of. Something that's come up a couple times as well is that there's a difference in how we address bias and discrimination versus bullying. What we're experiencing right now in the country is bullying. Okay. So you don't necessarily, with bias and with discrimination, there's a whole process, there's dialogue, you reason, we can have those conversations, right? When it comes to bullying, that is not your, that is, you're not going to make progress in that direction. I think it's helpful to let people know that that is the state that we're in. This isn't about trying to be reasonable. This isn't a time to try and compare and say that this is uh you know how this makes sense or not make sense. Okay. Something I talk a lot about, and I think all of us need to get into a space of being able to talk about whatever it is harm. And so what you want to share is like, if you use the words, I am feeling that people are harmed and I'm concerned, and I want to find out how I can support you in whatever way would be helpful to you. So we have to be more proactive in saying that to other people and checking in and asking and being brave with that conversation, um, and not allow ourselves to say, they will tell me, they will come to me, right? They will break that silence. And I just need to let them know that I'm here and they're going to come to me. That's not how this works. Okay. We have to be proactive, which is actually one of the reasons we do this. We've been creating spaces where we're opening up so people, and we're actually going out and talking to people. Like we're actively reaching out to people on a very intentional basis, checking in related to that. So that would be my first piece to share with you, that um it's a different strategy, and we have to be proactive. They can decide how they want to respond either way, right? But you can always couch it by being able to talk about where you are. I'm concerned. I want to find a way to be supportive, and I want to check in on you. Yeah, thank you for that. Mhm. Yeah. Welcome, everyone. I don't know if that resonated with people. So there's that part, and then other questions that can come up. Yeah. While y'all are coming up with your other questions, I will put a couple thoughts out there, though. I do find that a way to enter into some conversations is to ask people, where are you getting your support? Like what are you reading? What's helping you stay, in a space of hope? um, to say you're looking to expand your circle or your awareness. So who are the where are the places and who are the people you trust to, get information from, that can also be part of it. Bonnie, are you raising your hand to ask a question? Okay.
I had to figure out where the thing was.
Okay.
It's nice to see everybody. My question is, I'm I have I'm involved in some different organizations, trying to sustain democracy, I guess if you can call it that. I have two different distribution lists. I'm in New Jersey, so one with New Jersey folks, one with outside New Jersey folks. 25 people if I send a message to all of them. Trying to figure out as a leader, who's very passionate, and who knows the only way to get through this is to, you know, do things, calls or what have you. How to encourage people to do it, because sometimes, I'm writing most of the messages I'll send. I'll keep the subject line, but then just write next to it like a signature or one call, or I'll
Mhm.
say to people, one call took me 5 minutes, or explain to people how to make calls. And I'm finding that people like don't want to do stuff. They prefer to complain or shut down or whatever. Maybe they're not impacted yet. But
Mhm.
I'd love any thought process. And by the way, I'm in line picking up two children, so if I disconnect suddenly, that's why. But
Mhm. Mhm.
I would love any
Yeah.
ideas you have of how to motivate others
Great,
who.
great, great, great. So I think as a leader, and some leadership pieces that we might not have highlighted a lot in our different contexts and worlds, is that there's sort of this idea, and I think I shared a little video about this with Linda Hill, who said that, historically we sort of saw leaders as someone who would set a vision and then get people to buy into that vision. Does that resonate with you? Okay. What we're recognizing right now in terms of for innovation and the way, the fact that people have access to so much technology and that sort of stuff, leadership has to take a different approach. And many leaders that I've worked with really struggle around this because they have to give up control to a degree about what the vision is going to be, because it's less about motivating people to follow your vision and more about being able to connect with people first and co-create that vision together so that we can move forward in wherever that might be. So as you're talking about, what do I get people to do? I'm still looking at whether or not we have done enough to connect individually with each person for whatever, because half of the time, like, we need to make sure that we are inviting people into a call to action to something that they are comfortable doing. If you don't know them, you won't know what that call to action will be. And I find, unfortunately, that some of us don't really know who we're leading, like who our people are, what their strengths are, what they do really well. We might not even know enough about our own. Like, what are the things that we do really well? What is our gift? What is our strength? So like when I do coaching with people, that's one of the places that we start with, is to look at what is your strength? What's your first, what are the things that you are it doesn't take anything for you to do, right? Um, I tell people all the time, like, one of my strengths is I am always looking for a direction forward. I'm a maximizer, right? Relationships and maximization, like, these are my top two strengths. And I know that that is helpful for some people. It can also overwhelm people because they need, like, it's just too much, right? Because I can just keep going. So you need to know what your strengths are as a leader first, And then just start one-to-one. What is it they really care about? What are their stories? What are the things that they have seen that actually make a difference? I asked a question in my email earlier this month, asking people, what has helped you come back from something difficult? Okay. So if I'm talking to someone and their pathway or their thought about what helps people is that they have to feel the pain, then part of your job is to help them get connected to whatever the pain is, right? But if their sense of like what helps them get motivated is that they have to see a vision and a plan and see others who've, been successful, they need some evidence, then you know that your job is to help them connect to what that evidence is. You get what I'm saying? Okay. If so by telling someone go make a phone call, but they don't see that as a viable path to making a difference, they're not going to do it.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So that's where the getting connected is really important. And even for me, it's difficult. I have to really make myself slow down, hear someone's story so that I can understand what are they seeing, what is it that they feel like needs to happen. And like one of the conversations I was in, they were looking for a leader. They were looking for, they're like, who is that voice that's like gonna, move us forward? Now that's not how my pathway of how I see change happen, but that's their pathway. And we've started to lift up and figure out who those people could possibly be, and then how they can support hearing from them and having that person share a message that would actually move the needle. Great question. This is fun. What else is what is another question, a thought, response?
Yeah, I guess just more of a thought than a question.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, reflection of like where I'm at and like my own bias that comes up. But it's like I find myself wanting to have conversations, especially with people that are close to me or family members. But I'm also like checking my motives, and realizing that maybe I'm not in a space to actually have a dialogue. Like,
Mm-hmm.
or it's just checking like my own stuff of like, yeah, I feel like my ego is on edge right now, and like I just want to prove a point and be right about something. And so I'm finding it, I'm definitely finding myself like being reserved and holding back on those conversations. Just because, right, like if I want other people to be open-minded and engage in a dialogue, then I need to be willing to show up and be in that same space. And I'm just not right now. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I've really limited my news intake and gotten off social media, and just trying to be mindful about like how much I'm allowing into my space. Um, with reading what's important, or at least what I feel is important, but it's inescapable. You go to the gym and the TVs are on, and so it's like you can't, you still see and hear stuff everywhere. And so it's like when I see that stuff, I just feel all that agitation kind of getting stirred up, and I'm finding it difficult to be in a place of like wanting to have productive conversations. I mean, I want to have them, but I'm finding myself not able to be in a space quite yet to have those productive conversations.
Well, I'm grateful you said that, and I think that it's okay to not have the conversation as well, and to just say, I just want to leave a question with you, right? Like it's okay, whatever those things might be. You don't have to have um it- so let me ask you all these questions. I'll say this for myself, but I'm going to ask the question. I'm not going to wait for you to answer it, but I'm just going to ask the question. When you think about what has helped you have an aha moment or a big change in your life, what is that? At least for me, it wasn't some deep, long conversation I had with somebody, right? It was maybe something I saw, a question that was posed to me that then came back up the next night, like something that I was able to sit with, but it wasn't the dialogue so much. It was what I got like motivated or hearing a story, something like that. So I think that we have from TV, right? We sort of think there's going to be this like magical moment and we can like help people make that shift. Um, if we can get better in touch with how change really does happen, it'll help you, right? And it can help you be a little less scared about having those conversations because it's always the multiple things that need to happen. It is the I mean, I feel like I want to defend myself, but I get my friends who'll tell me, well, you were hitting me over the head all the time with those appreciative questions. I was like, I know I did it nicely. I know I was not wasn't like this, but for them later, like the way they described it was like, you kept hitting me over the head with those appreciative questions. Um, so that's something to consider, right? I also think it's important to pay attention to what we are kind of trying to disconnect from, because some of the things we still need to stay connected. We just need to protect ourselves in the being connect, in what we're taking in. So if you've been with me in other things, I always talk about you need 5 positives to outweigh a negative, right? So there's some good work or some good research on like burnout. And one of the things that we don't do, I've talked about this too, is complete the stress cycle. So, shaking things out, screaming, allowing yourself to have the emotions. It's good for people to see that. It's actually okay. It's okay for people to see us cry, to be emotional, to care, um, and that we don't have to have it right, you know. Yeah. In some ways, I think that's what we need to do more of. We need to be willing to get it wrong. And that's a little bit where I'm at right now. I'm like, I think I'd rather someone tell me I'm actually wrong on this. And like, because I need some help to understand, right? Like, I think we could do better with that. Yeah. So yeah, don't worry about trying to have that long conversation. It really is just little things. Mhm. Which is also what we're experiencing is those little things.
I'm curious if you've seen non-government organizations back off on their DEI training or their identity of who they are, of how DEI is important to their organization. Are you seeing any orgs backing off from that just out of fear?
Definitely. I mean, we're definitely seeing people back off. I'm also seeing people step up. So, I get messages from people, we're not backing down. This is important to us. But certainly there are plenty of people who are shifting language or trying to shift language. Um, I think the thing that I'll even say for us, like few months ago, I was like, oh yeah, I've been in this work for over 20 years. It has had many different names, right? And to me, it's just about how are we more human? Like, and in the recovery world, I get into the whole thing. It doesn't really matter what the word is, right? Um, However, there has to be a line in terms and I'm always in that, right? Like when we do our basic tenets, we talk about this work is messy, toes are going to get stepped on, right? And what we don't have a dialogue on is whether or not you're stepping on my toe and that hurts. That is not something that we are going to have a agree to disagree on when it comes to pain. So I think that that is where things need to be. We need to have some structure, which is also why we do work where we set our tenets. We try to be transparent about that from the beginning. So yes, groups are making shifts. We're all trying to find ways to navigate. And I think more and more, though, I'm starting to see people really recognize that, like, it's not the things that are happening are not getting ready to stop on their own. We have to be part of it stopping, right? We have a choice about that. Um, and that is, that's where I hope coming together, seeing other people, talking, reading, hearing stories, keeping anyone at a space in which they are activated, cortisol is high, that is an unsustainable place to be. We will all break. It's not healthy. So I come at it from that perspective, right? Of like, it's just not sustainable. Your body can't sustain it. And so we should be conscious of that and find ways to tap into our resilience. Yeah.
Dr. Dietra, I'm going to be
Oh,
honest.
sorry. Oh, go ahead. Beverly, and then I just wanted to make sure, Anne,
Oh,
if
I
you
didn't
wanted to
raise
say
my hand.
anything
I'm
else, and then-
sorry.
No, that's okay.
I have one quick follow-up though, which, I'm sorry, Beverly, if you don't mind, don't forget your question though. It seems to me that organizations need to make conscious decisions about this rather than being on autopilot, and this is part of our orientation, so therefore we should, or just it's what we do. Does it require also a conscious decision of the current administration is saying this and our organization believes in this, and because of that, we will continue doing what we're doing?
Yeah, I think that I think organizations do need to have some conversation. And I think from my perspective, this is an opportunity to really examine, well, what do we really care about? And what does this really mean? Because part of what's happening is that no one is stopping to say, so what does that really mean? And then again, our strategy is you don't ask it once, you ask that 5 times.
Right.
Okay, that is what is missing. I see people asking once, maybe twice, but we really have to go deeper with what does that mean? Because right now, I was telling someone the other day, like I just saw a video of someone who doesn't know if they're going to get to continue their cancer treatment because their nurse has been told that they're being fired. Okay, so what does that mean? Right? What does that really mean? And that is where I think we have an opportunity, because this is about life and death. Like that's literally life and death. It's a difference. It's not a policy. It's not saving money. We're talking about people's lives. And I think that there's a space for us to be much more clear about that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Beverly.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I had to step away for a minute, but before I did step away, I did take some notes, and I was listening to Marie, and she was talking about the fact that there's no safe place to speak. Okay. And in recognizing that, and we also talked about how we're being flooded with all of this negativity. I don't care where you turn. So for me, because I'm very passionate and I'm very vocal, and I have to not be vocal, because if I'm vocal and the wrong person hears what I say, then it could have far-reaching effects on the people who I'm trying to serve. So therefore, I'm just talking about my self-care, okay? Because it's very hard. I had to say I have to stop listening to Jasmine Crockett. I have to stop listening to Roland Martin all day long, okay? And so what I've done is I said, it's time for me to reread the Bible. So I have started with Genesis in my car, and I'm reading it with the book, okay, and studying that. But then I also have to stay connected with the climate, because I don't know when they're going to stop my Social Security check and when they're going to stop my government pension. And when it falls into the bank, I say, hallelujah, Father, thank you, Jesus. But the one thing, and you mentioned it too, we have to be patient because I said I was going to get a calendar, a 4-year calendar, and start marking days every day like people do. Okay, to give myself some hope. But I just wanted to put some thoughts on the fact that I'm glad that we're meeting and we're having these conversations, and we can acknowledge that we're all kind of being bombarded with the same stuff. Okay.
Yes.
And there's a bit of powerlessness because we follow the rules and the rules aren't being followed. But that's all I wanted to share.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, if I can respond a little bit though, Beverly, to what you shared, being connected to whatever your spiritual source is, I think is absolutely critical. And we can find those things in so many places, if that is, planting, trees and flowers and tending, helping people. That is important. It's also important to be paying attention to and supporting our spiritual leaders, right? And what they're saying and doing as well. So I have been grateful to some of the leaders who've been speaking up, and how they've been showing up. And a book that has helped me is Richard Rohr's Falling Up, and really understanding sort of the two halves of life is what he talks about. And the things that you care about in the first half of life versus the things you care about in the second half of life. And this kind of gets to some of what you're getting at, right? And so there's really some important pieces that can come from that. That it's helped me a lot in just understanding part of where we need to be, and finding a way to embrace our elders, and basically saying, how are we being good ancestors? To ask that, these are the things you could put out there, Chelsea, that would be a question. How are we being a good ancestor? How many of us would read back in the day when we were learning about, all the different movements, and said, we would be on this side. And it's like, well, we're here now. What side are we on? How difficult is it? Do we judge people for that? Yeah. But yeah, stay connected to your spiritual side. And maybe we don't follow and read, you know, Roland all the time. Because that would keep you mad. Mhm.
Do love that question of, are we being good ancestors? It reminds us,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
we have always been taught to look back on history, and it's a predictor of what will happen again, and think about what side would I have been on, what decisions would I have made at that time. But I've never thought about looking at it right now. It's a great one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Is it Katina?
It is. Good afternoon. How are you all?
Good afternoon.
I think this is excellent. I'm not going to state, I work for a federal agency. And this has been probably I've been in it for like 23 years. This has been the most difficult month in a few days of my federal career.
Yeah.
It has been absolute chaos. And while I have been putting into practice, I actually even did it during the election process because it just was too much. Tuning out to a lot of the news media and or political pundits or conversations happening. So I do understand the need for self-care and for basically decompressing and finding ways to reinvigorate yourself. I've initially started back doing yoga and meditation because I need it. It's a daily walk.
Right.
But the other piece of that for me has been also not tuning out everything, finding platforms and ways in which I can communicate with like-minded people, because
Mhm.
outside of the self-care, my I'm trying to think of how I want to say my vigilante side is over it, and it's in the process, or my thoughts are, it's time to start fighting back, not continuously being reactive, but what are we
Mhm.
doing to be proactive? So
Yes.
I have been working to place myself in some of those platforms in which conversations are happening, and these are productive conversations. Not all of them are. Where what can we do as a group to make a
Mhm.
difference? What can we do to start pushing back? And not just accepting what's happening to us, but start to meet them and beat them in their own game, so to speak.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
will say, this week alone, that has brought me some peace, because I'm tired of just taking it, and I'm ready to fight back. So it has helped me to know that there are people who feel the same or have similar feelings. And unfortunately, some of those are my comrades who I worked with, and now are no longer working with me.
Mm.
Um, and it's just been chaos. So um, banding together to either comfort each other or come up with ways in which, or someone knows someone that maybe you can get communication out to, because we're not allowed to, has been kind of what we've been recently doing. And it has helped in some respect, so I don't feel so helpless, I guess, is a
Mhm.
way of saying it. So I'm not for sure if that has been other people's feelings and thoughts, but lately for me, it's just like I'm fed up with being fed up. Now I'm ready to start fighting. So it has helped me to kind of get rid of some of my angst.
Yes. Mhm. Uh, I also think the way each of us fight is different, but I'm right there with you with the resistance. One person we were talking about staying focused is resistance, right? Being connected is part of that. Um, so right there, Beverly. Yeah.
Thank you for saying, that vigilante part. I'm that way, uh, because it's truly a war. But what I have found that is helpful so that I can continue to do the work that no one wants us to do is to reframe the conversation to accomplish those things. We had a DEI group now where butterfly, I don't know,
Mhm.
we have a new name for it because the work still has to be done. We still have to reach the underserved communities. We still have to do those things, and we have to ensure that no one really strips our finances away, that we can get groceries, we can go shopping and do those things. But it's how we say, how we align with, whether we aligned with you or not, we align with, and to share our ideas and try to get allies in those places where they don't really want to be public allies, because they have repercussions also. Everybody's not all for the boat, okay? But they have to pretend they're for that boat so that they can continue with their livelihoods. And a lot of people don't want to make that sacrifices. But if enough people let our ideas be known and let everybody know that, I say the emperor has on no clothes, he's
Mhm.
butt naked, but
Mhm.
nobody wants to
Mhm.
say it.
Mm. Yeah, I think the hardest part with change is that there's this idea that it only happens one way, instead of that there are many different roles that people play, and that it doesn't happen like, just overnight. And we need to be very intentional about what we want. Um, I think that where I am, and a lot of this is saying, like, I'm going to do what I can to create opportunities for people to connect, talk, be, strategize, like that. I know that that's what I am called to do in that space, and sort of getting us figuring out what is your gift, like what's your superpower, what is your gift, what are the things that we need for you to do. There are some people I already know who are in a position to provide safe housing for people in another part of this world, right? There are other folks who will do a different role, in what we're why we're here and what we're talking about. I was trying to think, there is someone who was talking about like trying to think of whose book this was in. But basically the piece here is like when people do start to come in, we can't be mad at them that it took them so long. You get what I'm saying? Like we can't as people come in, we just need to like be at a place where we can welcome people in and not criticize them for not doing it our way, you know? And that everybody has a role to play. So we say that all the time, right? In a lot of our training and work, like some of us are here to tell our stories. Some of us are here to help amplify those stories. So it's okay. Figure out what your gift is. What is your calling, and play your part.
I've seen some very nice expressions of support on LinkedIn, just out to the world. And many of the notes I've seen have been, if you are a federal worker, if you are a civil servant, here are my recommendations of next steps. And I can't validate any of them, but it seems to be coming from a good place of here's what you can do to support yourself and support your colleagues. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Stay connected, right? Like not, and we all need to be connected. I think we all need to share stories, amplify stories, tell our stories. Um, I've met people, had a conversation with a neighbor who didn't believe that we could be in this position that we're in, and shared that the work we do, the work I do, has been impacted before and is impacted now. But a lot of folks are not aware, right? We just usually the job, I say this for myself as well as like a facilitator or a trainer, is when people think they can do what you do, it's because you made it look easy. And I think sometimes we have all these things like people like think, oh, it's so easy to do until they actually do it. And so we just need to be aware that that's sort of like part of what's been going on. And I think the iterations of the work ahead of us is to keep up with the times of how we are visible about what we do. Some of what we haven't done, and many different things, very few people, when we think about the civil rights movement and the work of Dr. King, recognize the work of his secretaries and all the other folks who were around. Like it wasn't just him, right? There's so many stories that we could learn to better tell stories where we talk about the collective work that we all did instead of just what one person did. So that when we're looking for how change happens, we don't have this idea that it's narrowly we're looking for that one person. Yeah. So we have a little more than 10 minutes left. Is there another question or something? A resource people are finding helpful? I'm glad to see that Chelsea, thank you for that. The law of attraction for sure, like all of those pieces, whatever your faith tradition might be. Well, I wonder where other people are showing. Are you showing up in other places? Are you seeing people provide support in other places? I've seen a number of different opportunities that have been circulated around, especially on LinkedIn, for support. Um,
I'm getting network requests just from friends of friends of friends.
mhm.
Reposting job openings that I see that my network may be interested in, just doing that all the time. Yeah. And I'm very worried about our national parks, which I know is not part of this conversation, but
No, yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
No, I think we have to share the things that we have, the things that we're concerned about, where we're at, what we're seeing, and recognize that so much of it is actually all connected.
That's fair.
Hello, Larry.
Hello there, Dr. Dawkins. Okay. Okay,
All
so
right, Dr. Turner.
since everyone, hey, I really enjoyed the conversation, and when you're talking about my next door neighbor is a avid Trump supporter, and we share a lawn together. So we've stopped talking about politics long ago and maintain. Be back. Okay, son. So maintain, to maintain the friendship. Because those conversations just go down the rabbit hole, hey, you listen from this, you're from Africa, but anyway, but the main thing I heard Ms. Connor say is about self-care. You have to take care of yourself, and yoga and breathing and getting out, and you mentioned about the national parks, and oh my goodness, and I can't worry about that. I've got to get out and see the ones that are here in Illinois
Yeah.
and in Michigan and surrounding areas. And but this is not going to last, and I think more people, the more pressure that is put on people, and yes, some of us are going to have to lose income and homelessness, then you can kind of band together. But the conversations at the Y are no longer about basketball and football. They're becoming about, but and this that and it's a conversation. And well, it's just repeating what's out there. And it's like, well, what happens to you? And so until somebody loses their pension, and when it starts to hit home, and it's not just black, and it's not just DEI, and it's everyone, and it's farmers. But the main thing I think, is maintaining a good source of information. Because you have the main stations that are slowly being, but there's ProPublica. There's a lot of individual people that have a voice that is going to be very hard for people to shut up. And it's good that I mean, we're having so many different groups that are holding rallies here in Chicago, and you can't go to all of them. Father Flager, Catholic priest, holy, I drove by there and I said, "Oh, I'm out, but I'm going to this one." And it's good that's enthusiasm. So we have to participate. I know for me, on a superficial level, and try and keep my block as much informed and tight as possible. Say, hey, you want to go for this? But a lot of the people in my area, on my block, that's not the conversation, because it really hasn't hit home yet, and I think only one person has really lost some money or something, lost a connection to a job. And I think the more it hits home, the more it'll the more we will overcome. One thing I'll say this, what was that saying that Dr. King said? The pendulum of justice is big in the universe, and it always swings towards righteousness. So, yes, I'm glad I was able to remember that. But we have to fight. We have to hold that pendulum up, and take care of ourselves.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
am through.
Thank you, Dr. Turner. And the story, I think what we don't hear enough of are the stories of where resistance is happening. That it's very easy to feel like nothing is happening or people aren't doing things, and no one is upset. Um, and also helping us to, you know, be less desensitized, because I think some of what's happened is that there's a desensitization, like it has hit people, but they're like, oh, it's still okay, right? So versus like it's hit people. National parks, telling people thank you, all of those different pieces. um I'm hearing, Chelsea, like lots of people on Substack are very helpful to follow. um News sources outside of the country, like BBC, can be helpful. There's a couple others. Uh, One of the groups that I'm part of with Out of Hand Theater, on Sundays, the fourth Sunday, we've been having an hour for people to come together and connect. We've also created a Mighty Network group. So if you register and join, then you can be part of that group, and we're sharing resources there for news sources and information related to that as well. I know we shared that in one of our emails. So I recommend that we share who we're paying attention to with other people, and again, ask others who they are paying attention to. Data is important. Um, and I also think it's important that we're starting to, uh, yeah, uh, yeah. And I think that, it's nobody's perfect. Yeah. I've been concerned about some of that as well, which I would say is Substack. So I kind of go there. But I have also really appreciated Heather Cox Richardson in her emails that she sends out just about every day. Um, what I would also mention just quickly about, is it bias or non-bias? What I would look for is people sharing what their bias is. Okay, so when I talk about culturally competent research and all of those sorts of things, what we look for is not that someone is neutral, it is that they are sharing what their biases are up front, so that then you can make the decision on how to understand what they're talking about. So that would be it's a little bit different of a spin, right? But you will hear me in other work, I will say, like, I'm less interested in evidence-based practice, right? And more interested in like the full story. So getting context of things is so helpful, and that people can put their own context on things. So I hope that I'm leading from that perspective as well. Like, I share with you where I come from and the work that I do. And I'm not trying to be non-biased. I'm a Black woman, right? So everything I'm going to share with you is going to come from my own lived experience. We need to create spaces where people can be open about what their lived experience is, their perspective, and give you the opportunity to determine what parts you're going to take and what are you going to leave behind. So one of our favorite things: take what works and leave the rest. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, everyone who's been here. This has been very helpful to me. I just love hearing what people are questioning, noticing, asking. Um, I'm glad you mentioned the national parks. I think we don't pay attention to. These are all important. It's all connected. It's all connected. Our farmers, the things happening in the rural communities, we need to recognize that all of this is important. And I hope that we start to see that as an opportunity to say that we can imagine and start to dream of what we do want instead of what we don't want. So thank you, everyone. Yes. Oh, thank you, Deja. Yes, we've updated our Facebook page for both and. So definitely go there, check, connect with us there. Also at LinkedIn. I think we even have an Instagram now. So yeah, it would be great to have that. And we'll be holding these pretty much monthly. And we'll have some dinner conversations coming up soon as well.
And you should run for president.
That's an interesting. I think I'm supposed to tell you that.
Okay, goodbye.
Great to see you. Bye.
Thank you for coming. So good to see all of you. So good to see you. Yes.
care.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.